from just outside the Empire City at the crossroads to the northeast. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Wherever you are and whenever you are, this is your premier podcast for all things unknown, not media, and I'm your host, JP. Welcome to Not Media. I'm your host, JP. Today I have a special guest, Norio Hayakawa, as an American activist who lives in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He was the director of the Civilian Intelligence Network, a citizen oversight committee. He has appeared as a guest on Coast to Coast AM multiple times and is most known for his ufology investigations in and around New Mexico and the American Southwest. Norio is the author of a book, UFOs, The Grand Deception and the Coming World. He is also the producer of a DVD series, Area 51, Secrets of Dreamland. He has been featured in UFO Diaries, Encounters with the Unexplained, Sins and Secrets, and Parts Unknown. Welcome, Norio. How are you?
Thank you so much, JP, for having me on your program this afternoon.
Great having you. I also read that you, even though I didn't see it, I read that you were in the paranormal thriller Area 51 and that you starred in the film as yourself. How was it being part of that paranormal thriller?
Well, it was a very short appearance, just for less than 3 minutes, but I don't know. It's I did it because I thought it would help a little bit as far as my information was concerned.
Yeah. Do you feel like it helped you out, or is just as far as your research is concerned? And I know
Oh,
your interest in the topic or anything.
yes, of course, I'm interested in the Area 51 topic. I have been interested for many, many years, since around 1988.
Oh wow, is that is that 88 interest in the topic? Was that subsequent to the who was it? Bob Lazar and John Lear. I know for
No, way before that. Way
okay,
before
that
that.
was
See,
89 then, right?
Bob Lazar, Bob Lazar never came to the scenery till 1989.
Okay.
But already in 1988, I was already familiar with both the subject of Area 51 as well as the alleged underground base in New Mexico, Dulce. I was aware of these two topics since 1988, even before Bob Lazar came on the scene.
Oh wow. So, and what got you originally interested in those two topics? What pointed you in the direction, if it's not the notoriety
Well,
of?
first of all, in 1988, I did receive a small packet from a researcher by the name of William Moore, who lived in Los Angeles, and he was the author of a book about Roswell.
Yes.
It's called the Roswell Incident, and it was published in 1980. And 8 years later, I got in touch with him, and he sent me a packet about a secret location called Area 51 in Nevada. And he gave me a satellite imagery of the facility. And so at the same time, did get an information from a person named John Lear in 1988. And he sent me his so called hypothesis on both Area 51 and Dulce, New Mexico. So I was aware of all this already in 1988, and I became an ardent pursuer of these two interesting, fascinating topics.
Yes. And they are very fascinating, and we're going to try to, we are going to get into a little bit of a, what you know, and what parts of your interest, or what you have interest in each one of those topics. Just before we get into that, though, I wanted to, and I know William Moore, he actually came up in my research when I was doing some background investigation on Dulce. I believe was it William Moore? He was in touch with one of the original people to bring the story out about Dulce, Paul Benowitz. I know there was some,
That's right.
yeah, there,
Actually, yes. Moore and uh, Richard Doty met in Albuquerque in 1980, and both just drove around the Kirtland Air Force Base inside, and uh, Agent AFOSI, Agent Richard Doty, gave him a lot of information which was not correct. In
yes,
fact, was total disinformation. And both William L. Moore and Richard Doty were the authors of the dubious document uh, called the Somme documents. It's part of the so-called MJ-12 documents. And so William Moore admitted in 1989 in Las Vegas that he was a feeder of disinformation. Uh, and I believe him that he was.
yes,
Uh, but anyway, what happened was in 1980, William Moore wrote a book called Incident at Roswell, which became a bestseller. Until the book came out in 1980, nobody was talking about Roswell.
yes.
But yes, William Moore is one of the promoters of the Roswell myth.
Okay.
And so both William Moore and Richard C. Doty worked together to spread this false information about Dulce, New Mexico. And that was the whole beginning. It all started at Kirtland Air Force Base in
Oh
1980.
wow. And I know Stanton Friedman was a big proponent of Roswell. Unfortunately, we lost him in the past couple of years, but I know back, he started his research around that time, when they had the whistleblower Jesse Marcella originally come out and claim that he was part of the recovery of whatever was found out there at Roswell. Um, so, just real quick, tell me about yourself and your background. I read you were born in Japan. Was it 1945? And then,
I was, I was born in
oh,
1944
44. Okay.
in the city of Yokohama, Japan, and I attended schools over there like international school, high school, and 1 year of college in Tokyo. And then in 1965, I came right here to New Mexico, Albuquerque, New Mexico, in 1965, because I received a scholarship at a college here in Albuquerque. And coincidentally, I was very interested in New Mexico because when I was studying at a college in Japan, in Tokyo, in April of 1964, I read a news article about a small town right here in New Mexico named Socorro. And Socorro was the place where State Patrol Officer Lonnie Zamora claimed that he witnessed an oval shaped silver metallic object sitting on its tripod, about 300 feet away in the middle of the desert, right outside the town of Socorro. And so I was fascinated by this incident that took place in 1964, the Lonnie Zamora incident. And of course, this incident was one of the most credible and most deeply investigated UFO incident in the United States. And, it happened in April of 1964. I was so fascinated by this amazing sighting
Yes.
by Lonnie Zamora. Within a few days, Socorro was the place where more than 30 Air Force officers landed to investigate the whole incident. And Alan Hynek, I believe, came here, and he declared that incident to be one of the highly credible incidents that he ever investigated. And I had the privilege to talk to Officer Lonnie Zamora in 2009 when I moved again here to Albuquerque in 2008 after spending many, many years in California. And I had a brief conversation with Lonnie Zamora. He was a fine, polite gentleman, and he told me everything that basically that he described in the newspaper article. And I believe him 100% that he did see what he claimed to have seen. The big question is, what did he
Y-
see? And that is the big
yes.
question that I cannot answer even to this day.
That's an amazing sighting that he had. I know I touched upon the topic in one of my previous episodes, and I even know that they were trying to say, did it happen to be one of the claims was that it was a hoax from some college students at a technical college a- around the corner, and it just turned out to be that he had an engineer come out and they tested the footprints that the object landed in, and they figured out that the object that he observed would approximately have the weight that was responsible for causing the three footprints in the sand, and how there was burnt sand like glass underneath where the blue flame originally shot up. So he definitely had trace evidence to back up his sighting. And on top of the fact that he was a police officer with a credible work history, shows that he was
No,
a good witness.
no question about it. And that what's very, very significant about that incident was that Lonnie Zamora actually witnessed two short entities dressed in white coveralls
Yeah,
touching the object, and they were noticing that they were being seen by patrol officer 300 feet away, and so that's when they went inside the craft, and the craft soon, uh, you know, just hovered with a thunderous roar of an engine and fire, and then it just rose up, and then suddenly it flew away at an imaginable rate of speed, and it just went away. And what happened was actually it seemed like it flew away, but it was more like it dematerialized rather than flying at incredible speed in the distance.
yeah, because he said it was it had the flame shooting out, then the flame shut off, and then it became silent. I know he was stating that. So what a what a mystery then, the fact that he saw such an incredible sighting, and to this day we still know that he did see something, but yet there's a question mark around what exactly that he saw, or at least what the origins were of the object that he saw.
No question about it. And the reason I live in New Mexico is not by it's because of destiny. I believe that I was destined to come here to New Mexico, and I'm still glad to be a resident of this amazing state of New Mexico, which is the fifth largest state in the United States, but yet a population that is only 2 million in the entire state.
Wow.
And New Mexico is such an important state as far as new weapon system development is concerned, we have, White Sands Missile Testing Range, where even today there's, state of the art directed energy weapon systems testing going on. And of course, Albuquerque is not too far away from, Los Alamos National Laboratories. And, it's strange because there have been some amazing UFO incidents right here in the state of New Mexico since 1945, and
Yes.
Roswell actually was nothing compared to other more realistic, important incidents that took place right here in this state, that people don't know about. For
What?
example, in 1950, there was this amazing, amazing UFO incident in the town of Farmington, New Mexico, not too far from the Four Corners area. And this incident, to me, is one of the incidents that causes me to take another look at the UFO phenomenon, because I was sort of skeptical about the UFO phenomenon, but because of the reality of the Farmington incident of 1950, I became convinced that this is a real phenomenon.
Oh, wow.
And so I still am interested in the Farmington incident,
Yeah.
uh, and I wrote an article about it. In fact, I interviewed a witness in Farmington around 2000, well, around 2012, when I visited the senior center. There are only few actual witnesses that are alive right now that witnessed the amazing March of 1950 incident in Farmington, which lasted for 3 consecutive
Wow.
days, each time 1 hour from 11 a.m. to noontime. And it took place 3 consecutive days. And, I've never seen such a case. And that convinced me that the UFO phenomenon itself is real. The
Okay.
big question is, what was that UFO phenomenon about? And this is where I stand right now.
And it was just all the witnesses that had come forward. It was the fact that over such a extended period of time, and with the multiple witnesses, what was it exactly that about that sighting that led you to come to your conclusion?
Well, because of the high strangeness of that incident that took place over Farmington, New Mexico on March 15th, 16th, and 17th.
Okay.
Each incident was between 11 a.m. and 12 o'clock at lunchtime, and hundreds and hundreds of citizens witnessed not just one or two or 10 or 20, but even up to 400 to 500 metallic silver disc shaped objects making all kinds of maneuvers over the sky. And
Yeah,
so
that's
this
amazing.
is, I would say, one of the world's mysteries. It's comparable to a strange incident that took place in 1600s in Europe, in Nuremberg. It's called the
Okay.
Nuremberg incident. And so
Was that where there was a
the
battle?
other,
It looked like there was a battle going on or something. I recall
well,
reading about
yeah,
that.
hundreds of residents of Nuremberg, I think it was in 1610 or something, witnessed hundreds of objects of different shape just maneuvering or moving around. Maybe they were, I don't know, they were going against each other. I don't know what, but this was a historic incident. Such incidents don't come around too often. Now,
Yes.
the Farmington incident of 1950 to me is as just as important as another incident that took place in 1917 in Portugal, in a place called Fatima, where more than 20,000 people gathered to witness a miracle that was foretold to a shepherd girl, that on that particular day, October 13th of 1917, this entity dressed in white told this shepherd girl that on that day she will cause a miracle in the sky. And 20,000 folks were assembled in Fatima, and suddenly, despite the heavy rain that started the morning, suddenly the rain stopped, and many witnesses, not everybody, but many witnesses saw a strange light dancing in the sky. And at one point, that strange object, it was an object, it was kind of a dull, round, discoid object, uh, emitting strange lights, started to descend upon the crowd, and people got scared. And because of the heat, and as I said, not everybody saw this incident. There were journalists and photographers, and unfortunately, even to this day, it's very difficult to find any photo of this incident. And the same goes for the Farmington incident of 1950. Despite the fact that hundreds and hundreds of citizens of Farmington witnessed
Yes.
more than 300 up to 500 metallic silver objects in the sky for 1 hour each day, we haven't come across any photographs of this incident. In fact,
Ma-
this is one of the mysteries about the entire UFO phenomenon. Somehow,
Yeah.
I feel that whoever is manipulating or causing this phenomena, or maybe some entities, I don't know, I feel like they just didn't want this incident to be photographed for some
Yeah.
strange reason.
Makes you scratch your head. Like with everybody in their cell phones, it seems like everybody takes videos and pictures with their cell phones. Um, just about anything these days, from the most nonsensical, to just average civilians reporting news stories. Why can't a sighting like one of these happen today in the age? Like you would think, even if it did, people would just maybe claim it was CGI. But I mean, it's certainly, people have access to cameras now, so you would imagine that, if an event
Yes.
does happen like this, one of these rare
Speaking,
events.
yes, speaking about photographs, I have yet to see any single credible, clear photo of what's known as unidentified anomalous phenomena or unidentified aerial phenomena.
Okay.
Despite the proliferance of the cell phones, there's no single clear photograph of this phenomenon.
Okay.
Not a single one. And
What
I came to the conclusion that these things cannot be photographed with clarity at all.
I know.
And for some reason or other.
Okay. I know one of the closest ones we'll have is like, I know there was a shot of the Belgian what was it, 1989 UFO flap. There was a triangle that they
Yes.
had to
But
capture.
the reality, JP, is that the photographer admitted, I think about 12 or 13 years ago, that it was a hoax. The photographer admitted that it was a hoax.
His
And
picture though, but I mean, there were people. There was like an incident one time at a football stadium where there was a football stadium full of people that saw an object very similar to what was described in that photograph fly over the football stadium during a soccer match, what we would call here in the United States.
yes.
So.
JP, I've looked at thousands and thousands of photos and video footages of this phenomenon, but you know, uh, I have yet to see any clear images of humongous triangular shaped craft
Yeah,
of any kind.
yeah,
There's not even one. And as I said before, this phenomena somehow has a capability of blocking people from or cameras from taking a clear imagery
yeah.
of these things for
Do you
some
think it's,
reason or other.
you know, beyond what we know, something to do with the technology, maybe, or whatever the nature of the phenomena is? It might have something
It
to do with
could
that.
be, it could be,
Okay,
it could be, JP. But the
okay,
basic thing is that you know I came to the conclusion that we're talking about the phenomena uh, about this mystery. Living in New Mexico, right here in Albuquerque, I have lots of friends in a small community called Dulce, New Mexico. And actually, I've been involved in Dulce research since 1988.
oh wow,
Uh, because I got the packet from John Lear, who sounds crazy, and he probably is in certain ways, maybe purposely. He may be exaggerating some claims, but John Lear sent me a packet about Dulce, New Mexico. But the fact is that I visited Dulce in 1990 for the first time when I took a Japanese TV crew to that area and interviewed lots of locals over there. And so even today, I have plenty of friends in Dulce.
oh wow,
And I've investigated Dulce because it's only about 3 hours away drive, and I know a lot of people there.
yes,
But to this day, I have yet to see any credible, tangible, physical evidence that there is any kind of a physical underground facility in or around Dulce, New Mexico.
O-
Not at all.
okay,
But yet, but yet, I have lots of friends in Dulce who tell me about their strange experiences of
yes,
seeing strange vehicles or lights in the sky, even some military helicopters on occasion, and even witnessing some strange entities that some folks there think it could be even Bigfoot or even, uh, you know, uh, a skinwalker type of a figure
okay,
over there. So there's no question that even though there's no evidence for a physical facility over there, there's plenty of evidence that some kind of a paraphysical phenomena
okay.
is still going on in Dulce, New Mexico.
So, do you think that the key players in that Dulce story, um, just to keep some of our listeners up to speed, just kind of like a brief synopsis is there's alleged claims there could be some sort of an underground joint U.S. Government slash contractor and a gray alien facility under the Archuleta Mesa, originally brought forward by a scientist, Paul Benowitz, in the late 1970s or 1980. So some of the key players of this: Benowitz, Myrna Hansen, Krista Tilton, Thomas Costello, Phil Schneider, and then Anthony Sanchez also had a whistleblower who was who wanted to remain anonymous, Colonel X. You think all these key players, they're all just potentially victims of disinformation, or do you think that maybe there's some credibility to some of their stories and not 100% of what they're saying is accurate?
No, you said it right, basically, that they were all misinformed and, you know, given disinformation. And this is the key element about the whole Dulce story. The Dulce story started actually in 1967 when the Department of Energy or Energy Commission uh, exploded underground nuclear device about 22 miles southwest of Dulce, right next to the you know forest area. And this happened on December 10th of 1967. The United States government tested this experiment uh, in December 10th of 1967. They exploded a nuclear device about a mile and a half underground,
Okay.
about 22 miles southwest of Dulce, and it was called Project Gas Buggy,
Okay.
which was part of the post World War II Atom for Peace program, a plowshare program,
Wow.
because the United States decided that the atomic energy should be used for peaceful purposes. So they started this project plowshare in order to make use of the atomic power, and the project gas buggies intention was to explode this device about a mile and a half underground away from Dulce, about 22 miles away. But nevertheless, it was 1.5 mile underground. And the reason for that was to see if they could soften the hard rocks underground in order to facilitate the flow of natural gas in that entire area. And it was a very, very important program by the Department of Energy. And a lot of people have no idea that this happened. And,
Yeah.
before December 10th of 1967, the government agents uh, visited Farmington and Aztec and Dulce and the nearby small villages and towns, telling people that on December 10th they could feel some kind of earthquake, but not to worry because the atomic energy was conducting an experiment to ease the flow of natural gas and trapped under the rocks in that area. And this was for the benefit of the communities near there. And so the agents went to these places and told the people. But anyway, on December 10th, there was a large explosion, and I have some photos of those explosions, the only two photos that I have, and a video footage that I obtained from the National Archives. And so that happened in 1967. And, my belief is that about 10 years later, some kind of a radiation leak from that experiment started affecting the local animals in that area, including Dulce. And this was the beginning of the so-called the cattle mutilation incidents.
Yes.
And I had a friend who investigated the cattle mutilations incidents near Dulce, New
Was
Mexico, especially, and his name was
uh,
Officer Gabe
okay.
Valdez,
And
who was,
did you know Emmanuel Gomez too? I know I looked into that there was a rancher that was
yes,
complaining that he lost
no
17
question about
animals.
it. No question about it. The whole Gomez family had a humongous ranch in Dulce, and the Gomez families were not Jicarilla Apache people. They were descendants of the Hispanos there who had lived there for many, many years since around late
And
1600s.
just to be cl-
They were,
and just to be clear to the people listening, I believe the Gomez family was the only family, that land that the supposed Dulce base is located, or the Archuleta Mesa. It is on government protected land. It's Indian reservation. It's is it Jicarilla Apache Nation?
that's,
It's a Indian reservation, and it turns out that it's almost like the Gomez family was grandfathered in when they originally signed the paperwork to give that land over to the Hickory Apache. I think it was in the 1880s, and the Gomez
yes.
family lived there since then. So because they already had lived there, they were allowed to stay. Right there was some.
Yes, but not only the Gomez family, but there are other few Hispano families that have lived there since around the late 1600s, and the United States government decided in 1907 or something to create an Indian reservation, bringing Apache people from all over New Mexico and other elsewhere, and they decided to create this reservation called Jicarilla Apache Reservation. And so, even the town of Dulce was not called Dulce; it was called Agua Dulce, which
Oh,
means sweet water in Spanish. So, Dulce right now it's a erroneous name. The original name for Dulce is Agua Dulce, which means sweet water in
Agua Dulce.
Spanish.
Okay.
Yes, no question about it. But you know, uh, it was around 1970s that something strange happened in the Dulce area, and be, I just mentioned to you the beginning of the cattle mutilation incidents.
Yes.
And then around the same time, there were some Dulce residents, especially children, especially I think in late 1969 or something, a few years after the nuclear explosion in in the gas project gas buggy, there was an incident where some children of Dulce were in a bus uh, early in the morning around 6:30 a.m. because there were many Dulce families who had their children attend a parochial school next to Dulce called Lumberton. There's a small community called Lumberton, New Mexico, which is about 10 miles away from Dulce, and many of the Dulce families had their children attend this parochial school. And one morning around 6:30 a.m., there were about 20 kids riding this parochial school bus, and suddenly on Highway 64, as the bus was going towards next town, Lumberton, suddenly from the mountain to the left side, namely Archuleta Mesa area,
Okay.
a dull gray metallic silver object crossed over Highway 64, and the whole bus was excited and the kids were screaming,
Wow.
flying saucers, flying saucer. And of course, there was only one flying
Yeah.
saucer,
Yeah.
but the driver of the bus was afraid and he was shocked. And instead of looking at the object and slowing down, he actually pushed on the pedal and sped.
Because he was
Uh,
scared.
towards, he was scared.
Yes.
And this incident was reported in Albuquerque Journal around the early 1970s. So, at the same time, after the Project Gas Buggy experiment, people started seeing some strange stuff, and you know, uh, the whole Gomez family began to be concerned because A lot of their cows were, victims of what they considered to be crime. And this is why the state of New Mexico assigned a state patrol officer by the name of Gabe Valdez in the late
Yes,
1970s to be in charge of investigating crimes concerning cattle mutilations because, in 1979, the Senate, the state Senate of New Mexico convened a public meeting in Albuquerque Public Library in 1979 and invited all the ranchers and people concerned to a special public meeting to discuss this strange incident of cattle mutilations because the families like Gomez family, more than 20 cows, and they were good ones, were mutilated and
yes,
they lost equivalent of $150,000 at that time
which is a very serious
to this,
offense.
yes, to this mutilation. So what I'm saying is that the Gomez family came to the conclusion that it was not aliens who were doing the cattle mutilation. And the same thing, my friend Gabe Valdez, the police officer, patrol officer in charge of Dulce, he also came to the conclusion that it had nothing to do with aliens, but
Mhm.
everything to do with the government. And so the Gomez family began to tell newspaper reporters that the government should be investigated. And around the same time, the Gomez family, Manuel Gomez house, their house was, visited by many federal agents and all other kinds of agents, including scientists from Sandia Laboratories and all that. And soon, the Gomez family began to notice that their house was bugged
Oh
and
wow.
they discovered many devices like bugs, listening devices in the ceiling and some furniture, and they showed me all these uh, devices, and so they started complaining, and the more they complained, the more they became oppressed. That's what they said, and they described their experience as some kind of domestic terrorism targeting the Gomez family because they began complaining about the possible government's role
The
in
cows.
cattle mutilation,
So
and
so you
so,
believe so
that's the whole story.
so you believe that because of Project Gas Buggy that they were doing experiments on the cows trying to find out. Let's just talk about the odd nature of some of these cattle mutilations. Um these
Yes,
animals had
yes, because
their blood drained. They had their a lot of times their reproductive organs cored out with surgical precision. They didn't have vascular collapse, which is notable because normally when if you were to drain the blood on something like the blood vessels would collapse. So it was just a very strange manner in which they were mutilated with surgical precision.
exactly, exactly, and of course, not only animals, but some residents of the Dulce uh, began to report that they were victims of cancer because even today there is quite a number of folks who are still suffering from cancer, possibly due to the radiation leaks from the Project Gas Buggy. And a friend of mine who is director of public safety in Dulce, his name is Officer Hood Galardi. He is suffering from cancer even now.
Oh,
And
sorry to hear about
yes,
that.
so yes, so this is what I call reality.
Okay.
But
What is
it
your
seems like
Wh-
yes,
you stated, I read in your forward to Anthony Sanchez's book, UFO Highway, that you had a friend at the time of when the book was written, and that was in 2011, who was the head of Department of Agriculture at a well-known university in New Mexico. That friend believed that there may be some sort of a base out there. Um, has that friend, because it kind of sounded like when you mentioned that friend that at some point when he retired or when he no longer held that position, he might come forward and try to help you further that principle of knowledge that there may be some sort of base out there, whatever his knowledge of that is.
Well, you know, I have to let you know that that friend of mine is Edmund Gomez, one of the sons of the Gomez family, and he was an instructor of the college, state university, and he was expert in animal diseases, and especially cows, because he grew up in that atmosphere, and he just recently retired as a dean of the New Mexico State. I believe the name was New Mexico State University or College, and he retired, but he still haven't come to any public announcements. But he believes that, just like the late Gabe Valdez, he believes that the government was the uh, behind the cattle mutilations as well as other incidents.
Does he believe?
And
Does he believe that there may be some sort of a base out there also? Because it said
well, he he has not stated that there is a base. However, he is interested because one day he showed me how to get to uh, an interesting area right next to Dulce, right around the Colorado border, and it's a
okay.
private ranch called the Redding Ranch. And
Yes.
he believes that the Redding Ranch had always been suspicious from the very beginning because the Redding Ranch ownership changed from many places, many sources. Like CIA once had what you may call it, a small facility of aircraft testing inside that ranch. But there's still no definite proof of that. So everything is in the it's in the air. But basically, like I said, I haven't seen any evidence at all that there's a physical underground alien U.S. collaborative
Okay.
biological base anywhere in or around Dulce. But
Okay.
people, even today, claim to have seen and are still seeing weird stuff going on in Dulce, and I believe them. I believe them because there's no reason for them to tell stories, and so this is the conclusion I came is that there is such a thing called paraphysicality or some kind of anomalous phenomena going on in places like Dulce, New Mexico, and the government seems to be aware of that. And it also created, coincidentally, a good environment for the United States military even to conduct some kind of a psychological operations in that area, knowing that the local residents have long cultural, spiritual tradition and beliefs about their origins. That is to say, that their belief that their ancestry came from underground, and this belief is not only unique to residents in Dulce and Hickory Apache people, but also in Arizona's Hopi
Okay.
tribes and other tribes. They have the belief, spiritual, cultural belief, that their ancestors came from underground somehow.
And is that some of the things that people are claiming that because you've spent some time out there, either local people or the Jicarilla Apache people, are they stating that they've seen strange things? Like, have they? Because people claim there's gray aliens. Have they seen anything like that? They claim to see beings with large eyes or UFOs. Like, what sort of things are people claiming that they're seeing out there?
Well, basically, yeah, people are still claiming that they have been seeing some strange crafts, including large triangular craft, size of three times a football field. And this is not the one or two incidents, but many residents claim to see these things. And who are we to debunk those claims? Because they have nothing to lose or nothing to gain by telling these stories. And I trust their judgment.
Yeah,
And this is why the government uh, cannot uh, debunk this whole anomalous phenomena. And I consider the UFO phenomena to be part of what the government, what the Pentagon now describe as anomalous uh, aerial phenomena or anomalous phenomena. So this is where we stand right now. There's no solution, and the United States government will never disclose their inability to explain to the public this whole mystery. And so I have told many people for many years that the government has never intentionally covered up the UFO phenomenon.
and
They, they, they are not going to disclose anything because they cannot disclose something that they cannot explain in scientific terms publicly. And so the only disclosure will come only from the so called entities or whoever is controlling this phenomena, whether they be physical or paraphysical entities that are manipulating this phenomena, possibly from time immemorial, for reasons yet unknown.
what do you think? With that said, of recent revelations coming to light, because I know originally Bob Lazar, his story could not be verified, his education couldn't even be verified. Then within the past 10 years, the CIA admits the existence of Area 51, and some people have come forward who have worked there who've corroborated some of Lazar's story, including, when he would go to work in the morning, he would use this hand scanner that would measure the length of his metacarpals, and he was talking about this since he first became, what he was saying was a whistleblower in 1989, and now people, 25 years after the fact plus, are confirming some of his story, and his prediction of element 115 being real before it was developed. And we have David Grush talking about crash retrievals at the 2023 UAP hearing on Congress. And now there's also supposedly put forward a 2023 UFO Whistleblower Act, which is bipartisan. What do you think about like that aspect of where all these
You know,
revelations that are coming to light recently?
one can say anything, but it's meaningless without tangible, credible, solid evidence for everything. In other words, the recent congressional UFO hearing, to me, was a total farce because two of the three people who made statements in that congressional hearing hadn't even produced any evidence at all. And Grush himself said the reason is because those evidence were classified. And so, I am very, very, very skeptical about the whole UFO congressional hearing, it's meaningless to me. And there are some folks who take advantage of this phenomenon for monetary gain. And, so we have to be very careful when dealing with this kind of thing. And one of those persons that attended the congressional hearing was George Knapp, as well as Jeremy
Jeremy
Corbell,
Corbell,
and they
yes,
were front
I
seats
know
right next
they're
to
a big
the
proponents of.
congressman. And so, we don't know until we get hold of tangible, real evidence. And you can say anything you want in this matter. Anybody can say anything. But until the concrete, factual, solid evidence is brought up, there's nothing whatsoever to discuss. And that's
Okay,
the end of story.
so
And the congressional hearing will go on
yeah,
for the rest of the year, maybe for another few years, but nothing ever will happen until the entities themselves, or whoever is controlling this strange phenomena from time immemorial, until those entities
disclose
disclose
themselves.
themselves
Okay,
openly
yes.
in the public, there's nothing for discussion.
And do you, just to play devil's advocate, do you, if there is any truth to what David Grush is saying, do you support any sort of acts in Congress being passed that will protect people if there is these crash retrieval programs? As David Grush stated, he's had some very high level talks with people who are connected to these programs. That if would you support a act of Congress being passed that would protect those people if they did come forward and say, "Hey, I currently work at a
Yes.
facility where this material exists, and up until this point, I've been sworn to due to national security, I've been sworn to secrecy, and this is the faculty in which my job exists. It exists in a window of national security. So for me just to come forward, I would be violating that security, and almost therefore if these people are real, that it's going to be looked at right now as we stand, it would almost be looked at as treason for them to come forward and
Well,
start. But unless they're protected by some sort of act of Congress that says, hey, well, if you do work in a program like this, you're not going to be considered a traitor to your country, and you're not going to be thrown in some military prison somewhere, because you have to understand that if this was real, the threat against the people working in these programs would be very real also. It would be a matter of national security, and they wouldn't want to come forward and get themselves in big trouble.
well, I would say that that's a good idea. But the bottom line is that I see no evidence for any artifacts. There's no artifact, I believe personally, that is being kept hidden from the public because, as I said in the beginning, this phenomena is a paraphysical phenomenon in which something is materialized from nothing
Yes.
and dematerialized after it's shown. So anything that is materialized paraphysically cannot remain in the same physical condition. It will corrode or corrupt or disintegrate after a certain time. And so, personally, this is my belief that there is no single artifact, alien artifact, ever that is being hidden right now by the United States government. But it's very possible that many government folks could be deceived by disinformation, thinking that they had seen a physical
Okay.
remnant of remains of an alien artifact. But I believe it's disinformation. Like I said before, anything that is paraphysically materialized cannot remain in that condition. So that's my thinking. I'm sorry if some of the folks, in fact, most folks, will disagree with me, but I have to state
Yeah.
what I have always said,
No,
that we're not talking
you
about the physical
you
phenomenon.
certainly have the right to believe that because I mean, proof that's a big claim. So to say that, somebody has proof, you want to put quotes around that, especially if no one to this point has come forward with any physical proof. I could see how people can still remain skeptical about any of this being real. It's easy to say words. It's hard to produce
That's true.
evidence.
And
Is that how you felt with your Area of 51 Secrets of Dreamland DVD? I didn't get a chance
exactly.
to watch it, but I
Yeah,
just want to kind of just let people know. I'm
Area
sharing the screen share of
51.
that now.
Sure, Area 51 is a very, very important American military research, development, and testing facility. It's a humongous complex that today employs about at least 2,000 employees that are working on various defense companies that is in Area 51, creating the latest technologies that is vital for our national defense. And that's what Area 51 is all about, because our hard-earned tax dollars are used in this important facility. And as far as I'm concerned, Area 51 has absolutely nothing to do with any kind of alien technology. It's all American technology. And,
S-
that's the
Yeah.
bottom line. And I've been to the perimeters of Area 51 many, many times, and I have yet to see any kind of incident that convinced me that we're dealing with non-human technology as far as physical
Okay.
technology.
Such as the B2
It's
B2
all
stealth
good old
bomber,
American.
the Blackbird
Yeah,
SR-71. So these
there,
are
there are
these.
some things that are very, very much developed at Area 51, but it's all for important national defense purposes. And so the cover story about Area 51 is the alien technology.
Yeah.
And it's a brilliant, concocted cover story created by many defense contractors. They
Yes.
have to have a cover story to conceal some of the very sensitive military technologies that we have. For example, the new generation of unmanned aerial vehicles and unmanned combat aerial vehicles, and the drones and other things that are very difficult to believe. But their technology right now is probably like about 10 years ahead of what's been reported
Wow.
in technological circles.
And I also heard before that there was this whole social media craze, Storm Area 51, which was all over Facebook within the past year or two. That you had some sort of event that you had scheduled. I was reading something about it wasn't like a protest against Area 51, but it was just questioning, having people come out and try to question what the nature
Yes.
of the base was.
Yes, in fact, in 1998, I organized a public gathering at the perimeter of Area 51 on Groom Lake Road in 1998, and it was called the People's Rally at Area 51, in which we addressed the government's lack of admittance that there is a base over there. And we also address the issue of the workers at Area 51 who became sickened because of the coming in touch with toxic chemicals while they were working on the stealth programs at Area 51. So
Yes.
in 1998, we assembled a lot of public, the public. There were about 200 folks that assembled on June 6th, 1998 to protest. And we also uh, requested the government to just admit the name Area 51 rather than just uh, an operating base near Groom Lake.
Yeah.
It
So you
was a ridiculous
so
name.
you are the
Uh,
original person who yeah, I'm going to say storm Area 51, but you're the one who originally had set a event up years, decades before this whole social media phenomenon of
that's
storm Area
correct.
51. You're the one that
And JP, JP, one more thing about Area 51 is that this is the only base, military base, where the guard shack is located a mile or a half a mile inside the perimeters. This is the only base that I know. You know, all the American military bases have the guard shack right at the perimeter of the base, but only in Area 51 is there a guard shack hidden inside about a half a mile inside the facility. So if you go to the guard shack, you're already arrested.
because so many
So
do you think they put that so far back because so many people are curious about what's going on in there? The possibility of somebody slipping past one of these checkpoints and maybe getting a little further into the perimeter is very real.
that's right. That's why we demanded that the Air Force create a clearly marked wall or a boundary fence
Yeah.
right at the perimeter of Groom Lake Road
And they did.
and build guard shack right there.
And they did.
No,
Right? No?
actually, no. The guard shack is not presently located at the perimeter
Okay.
line.
Is there a gate though?
There's yes, there's no fence or that demarks the
Still.
boundary line. There's only red, orange colored posts scattered about 100 feet away, and it's just total farce. But
And they did
they have.
but they did come forward and in 2013 and announced that it was Area 51 that this is a
That's
real
right.
yes.
That's right. And
So
some
you may have been
folks,
responsible for that.
I believe that the grassroots movement of concerned citizens is very important, and I was part of that movement. And fortunately, the government began to compensate some former workers for their sickness, and so I continue to believe that grassroots people's movement is very important in all of this.
Yes.
And JP, I have to, sorry, but I have to depart right now. But it was a tremendous honor to be on your program because you brought up some very important, realistic points about this discussion.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much for I'm going to stop this screen share so we can pull back over here. Thank you very much for coming on. Is there a website you would like to share, or is there a
Yes, I
that you'd
have.
like people to check out?
Yes, I have a blog site called noriohayakawa.wordpress.com. noriohayakawa.wordpress.com. And I have many, many, many articles relating to UFOs, Area 51, Dulce, the paranormal, and also I have many, many articles about the beauty of the state of New Mexico, the land of enchantment. So I
Great.
urge a lot of
I'm sure
people to
people will.
go to my site and look at these articles. And I have lots of YouTube videos on YouTube. Just punch Norio Hayakawa on YouTube, and I have at least 300 to 400 short videos on the same kind of subject matter.
Okay. I'm sure people are going to want to check that out. You just seem to be a wealth of information about the UFO topic, and with all the years and experience and the time you've put in, it was definitely a pleasure having you on here. And I will make sure to link your website on when I post this podcast, and I'm sure people will want to come and check out some of your information. So I certainly appreciate you having you on, Not Media. Norio, you stay well.
Thank you so much, JP. It was such an honor, and God bless you and your listeners.
Thank you all for listening to this episode, and thank you everyone who has chosen a life of service. This is not just military, fire, police, and EMS, but also anyone who has taken their talents and passions and used them for the service and betterment of others and this world. I'm not saying goodbye. I'm saying until next time. This is your host at Not Media, JP, signing off. Stay well, everyone.